Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
Tonight on News Hour, ousted president calls for help as President Tinubu Commonwealth reacts to coup in Gabon. Building collapse kills 6, injures others in Borno IDP camp. Katsina residents resort to cooked cassava meal as price of food continues to rise. Away from Nigeria, several killed in fighting between SDF and tribesmen in eastern Syria. Hello and welcome to the News Hour on Trust TV. I am Ayuba Ilya. Now the details. Gabon's deposed president Ali Bongo has solicited for help hours after he was put under house arrest by members of his presidential guard in an ongoing coup attempt on Wednesday. Bongo, who confirmed his arrest in a video circulating on social media, calls on citizens to make noise after coup attempt. Meanwhile, one of the president's sons has been arrested for treason. The ousted president has also been placed under house arrest alongside some of his family members. There have been scenes of celebration in the Gabonese capital, Libreville, since the military takeover.
Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm at the residence and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
In the meantime, President Bola Tinubu is closely watching the unfolding events in Gabon and is deeply concerned for the country's socio-political stability and the autocratic tendencies which seem to be spreading across different regions of Africa. Now, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngilale, said on Wednesday that President Tinubu will still firmly believes that power belongs in the hands of Africa's great people and not in the barrel of a loaded gun. He explained that the president had made significant personal sacrifices to advance and defend democracy and was therefore adamant that constitutional government must not be endangered on the continent. The president's spokesman said that the Nigerian leader is also keen to see how the continent will respond to the contagious autocracy spreading across the continent.
The president affirms that the rule of law and a faithful recourse to constitutional resolutions and instruments of electoral dispute resolution must not at any time be allowed to perish from our great continent. To this end, the President is working very closely and continuing to communicate with other heads of state in the African Union toward a comprehensive consensus on the next steps forward with respect to how the crisis in Gabon will play out, into how the continent will respond to the contagion of autocracy we are seeing spread across our continent. The people of Africa living in the diaspora around the world, making a huge impact to the socio-political landscapes of countries around the world and the economies of countries around the world, continue to urge on the global community to advance the cause of democracy on the continent for the sake of the economic prosperity of all Africans.
Meanwhile, the Commonwealth on Wednesday voiced fears about a military coup in Gabon, which joined the grouping last year, and said it was monitoring the situation closely. Secretary General Patricia Scotland said the situation was deeply concerning, adding that the Commonwealth Charter is clear that member states must uphold the rule of law and the principles of democracy at all times. This comes hours after a group of Gabonese military officers appeared on television announcing they were putting an end to the current regime and cancelling Ondimba's election. It came moments after the National Election Authority said that Bongo had won a third term in Saturday's election with 64.27% of the vote. Now, earlier we spoke to Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst, via Zoom, where he shares his perspective on the development in Gabon.
Reversal across the African continent, and this is as a result of a lack of democratic ethos by the political leaders of Africa. One wish things were different, but unfortunately, many of the Francophone countries are now engulfed in Syria military takeover. And this is traceable to, first and foremost, the connivance and collusion of France in kind of assisting separatism in some of these African countries, coupled with maladministration, corruption, lack of good governance, as well as disputed elections. For case of Ali Bongo, his family has ruled Gabon for 53 years, and you wonder whether there is no other person competent in the whole Gabon to govern the country. They have turned Gabon to monarchy from father to son. And you could see that he altered the constitution of Gabon to get a third term in office. This is an obviously sick man whose health is suspect. In fact, a couple of years ago, he was alleged to have been struck by a stroke for over 1 year. This is a man that should ordinarily be attending to his health, but who still wants to stay put in power? And you could see that the military takeover, part of the reasons they took over was the disputed election, which they said was fraudulent, as well as, of course, issues around economic mismanagement, corruption, high cost of living in the country, and several other reasons. So, in summary, there's a democratic reversal in Africa, largely because of those factors I've mentioned. The reason being that he's asking his friends to make noise. Noise will not change the situation of the people of Gabon. The people that they have enslaved for over 53 years, the people that they have visited with a lot of hardship. Gabon is is an oil-producing country, but look at if you go by statistics, the economic quagmire in Gabon is astronomical. It's next to Niger Republic, which just had the coup in the course of July 26, actually. So it tells you the story that without good governance, you may not be able to resist the urge of military takeover in your country. The African Union, yes, I expect African Union to come out with a statement later today, or maybe in the course of the week. Incidentally, this does not fall within West African sub-region because Gabon happens to be in Central Africa. But be that as it may, it's instructive for other African leaders who are playing God, who are, illegally tinkering with their constitution, who are doing away with rule of law, that their days are numbers in power. And they need to be mindful that unless they engage in good governance, in rule of law, in due process, in transparency and accountable elections and accountable governance, the military may be incentivized to take over reins of government in their country.
And away from that, no fewer than 6 travelers have been reported missing after a passenger canoe capsized on Zamari River in Aguara local government area of Niger State. The incident happened on Monday when travelers, mostly farmers, were traveling from Niger State to Kebbi State. Residents said that the lifeless body of one of the travelers had been recovered while search operation was still ongoing to rescue the remaining people. The canoe with about 20 passengers on board, including women and children, capsized when the engine powering it went off in the middle of the river, causing it to capsize. When contacted, the Overseeing Director General, Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Garba Salihu, confirmed the incident, adding that the agency was yet to get full details of the incident. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, on Wednesday engaged stakeholders on the release of water from Lagdo Dam from Cameroon. According to NEMA, 1.4 million Nigerians were displaced by floods arising from the release of Lagdo Dam in 2022. The engagement was, among other things, to address concerns among Nigerians on the likelihood of flooding in flood-prone areas around the country. Trust TV's Abdurrahman Umar reports.
At the meeting, the Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NESA, Clement Inza, said prior to the agency's communication to the hydrologist in charge of releasing water from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, necessary adjustments were made to ensure that the situation is contained to avert any likely disaster.
In the afternoon of 24th, being Thursday, he said we have reduced the rate of spill to 50 cubic meters per second, about 4 million cubic meters of water per day, and it will still continue accordingly. Then on Monday, he sent another message that we have closed our gates, and that we did it by 11 a.m. on Monday, 28th of October of August. So as of today, there is no more spillage of water from the Lagdo Dam.
The NESA DG further said, despite the existence of an existing MOU between the federal government of Nigeria and that of Cameroon since 2016, timely updates of their seasonal release of water from the Lagdo Dam was not contained in that MOU. The NESA DG recommended that states, especially those prone to flooding as a result of the release of the water from the Lagdo Dam, should deploy all necessary modalities to avert the anticipated disaster.
It is highly imperative to deploy high level of preparedness on the part of federal and state governments, particularly the states that we have already listed them in our document.
The Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Ahmad Mustafa Habib, says necessary advice were given to states of the Federation that are on the verge of facing flooding in the country on measures to be taken to avoid being affected by any likely flood.
We met with a governors forum. We also met them again at NEC. We gave them all the advices that needs to be given. And all the states have been very proactive. Or I should say most of the states have been very proactive. So we'll probably see a lot of difference this time around.
Habib said while NEMA is providing some level of help to those affected by flooding, it was imperative for state governments to urgently come up with flood preventive measures.
We are providing temporary shelter to support the states, but the states have to provide the IDP camps. NEMA does not provide IDP camps to states. The state governments do that. We support them.
The United Nations, through its Foreign Affairs Office representative Riem Okoba, says the UN as an international partner is committed to supporting Nigeria in mitigating the effect of disasters across the country.
The UN, with many other international and national partners, is committed to supporting the government and people of Nigeria to improve preparedness anticipatory action and response to disaster events across the country.
Stakeholders at the meeting called on states to ensure that all drainages are cleaned, blockages removed, and proper enlightenment and sensitization of residents are carried out. Abdurrahman Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
At least 6 people were killed and 3 others injured when a classroom building collapsed in a displaced persons camp in Monguno local government area of Borno State on Monday. It was learned that a classroom sheltering dozens of displaced persons in Monguno camp collapsed on Monday evening, killing 6 persons, while others sustained various degrees of injuries. A member of the civilian JTF, Bakura Ali, told Daily Trust correspondent that the incident occurred due to heavy downpour in the town. 3 persons are said to be receiving treatment in General Hospital. A local government officer who spoke on the condition of anonymity confirmed that the affected classroom had been weakened from a previous fire outbreak and hours-long downpour on Sunday caused the collapse. Now, on a sad note, Nigerian flag designer Taiwo Akinkunmi is dead. He died on Wednesday, aged 84. His son, Akinkunmi Samuel, announced the death on his Facebook page. Akinkunmi was awarded with 100 British pounds when his design was selected as the Nigerian flag. Now, he was awarded with the national honor of Member of the Order of the Niger by President Goodluck Jonathan in 2014. President Bola Tinubu, in a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, conveys his deepest sympathy to the family of the deceased. He affirms that the green and white flag is a legacy that has consistently reflected the fruitfulness, resilience, and harmony enjoyed by the nation and the boldness and uniqueness with which Nigerians characteristically reach for and achieve success around the world. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is, in a condolence message, said he directed that the national flag be flown at half-mast in his residence. Atiku said his thoughts and prayers are with the family, praying to God to grant him eternal rest. The House of Representatives has begun an investigation into the utilization of ecological funds released to the Great Green Wall project from 2015 to date. Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Ismail Adabo, said that the objective of the investigative hearing was to gather data towards ensuring that the project is optimally implemented, as well as identify challenges affecting its execution. The report.
The hearing is coming at a time of heightened public expectations, given the experiences with the management of public funds by agencies of government in recent times, which is threatening the development of Nigeria. The objective is to expose corruption and guide the new administration in the continued implementation of the policy. Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Ismail Adabo, is worried that despite funds put into the Great Green Wall program from both federal government and international partners, funds were being used inappropriately. He expressed displeasure that some ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government, as well as several state governments, have either not responded to the committee's request to submit necessary documents or deliberately delayed such documents to prevent it from carrying out its mandate.
More than 80-something billion on this project of planting of trees in Nigeria is more than, aside from the dollar accounts that we have now, that we need to check what is there actually. So you spend barely just 1 year, you understand? And these monies were being spent from inception. So it is what we have here that we are saying. We are not alleging. These are documents from the CBN, from the Accountant General, and from your agency. When you check your agency, it's even more than that.
In another development, the House of Representatives ad hoc committee investigating the non-remittance to the National Housing Funds and utilization of the funds from 2011 has summoned concerned chief executive officers of insurance companies over an unremitted 267 billion workers' investment in NHF for the year 2019. Chairman of the committee issued this summon following their failure to appear before the committee to explain the unremitted funds.
We have all your records, the insurance companies are owing the National Housing Fund an unremitted amount of insurance companies into the National Housing Fund. Because this committee, we're looking at non-remittance and utilization. So the non-remittance of insurance companies alone, as of 2019, not even 2020, 2021, or 2022, about 54 of you, your non-remittance into the National Housing Funds is over 267 billion naira. The records are there.
The insurance companies are expected to come and explain why they are yet to remit over 267 billion naira of forecast investment to NHF in 2019. The committee also expects the National Insurance Commission to show proof of insurance companies who defaulted in remitting workers' investment to Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Committee of Chief Medical Directors and Medical Directors of Federal Tertiary Hospitals, Bassi, on Wednesday said other countries are now poaching Nigerian medical doctors and other health professionals. Bassi said this when he appeared before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee probing employment racketeering in federal government agencies alongside heads of other health institutions in the country. Bassi, who is the CMD of the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital, said the health sector is currently undergoing a major crisis in terms of manpower as health professionals are leaving in droves. He also said doctors often went on strike because the government often failed to meet commitments made to the health workers. Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Yusuf Gadi, urged the doctors to be patriotic by staying back to contribute to the development of the country, even if they have better options abroad. He said the committee would work towards addressing the need to balance compliance with the spirit of federal character and filling up urgent vacancies in the health sector.
Stakeholders have emphasized the significance of dialogue in conflict prevention and mitigation, saying that if properly applied, can resolve the long years of crisis in Zamfara communities and the country at large. They said this at the two-day training for women, youth, traditional rulers and security operatives in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital, aimed at building their capacity on community dialogue on conflict prevention and management, gender sensitivity and analysis as well. The report.
Participants in the two-day training highlighted the high rate of unemployment, poverty, injustice and lack of punishment of perpetrators as some of the factors responsible for the escalation of conflict in the society. The organizers said the training is to build the capacity of dialogue facilitators to increase their skills in using dialogue as the best alternative dispute mechanism to resolve conflict in communities without approaching the court to seek redress.
The training, what International Class is doing is it has established dialogue platforms at the community level. So we have identified dialogue facilitators, and this training is aimed at strengthening the capacity of those dialogue facilitators to be able to manage conflict in the community, to be able to have alternative disputes. At the end of the day, we have communities where disputes are resolved in the community without necessarily escalating to even the courts, the formal courts.
One of the facilitators of the event believed that dialogue is the built alternative mechanism to the resolution of conflict.
What we want to achieve at the end of the day is to empower women, especially to be active in every dialogue opportunity given.
It is the belief that the participants of the two-day training will acquaint them with the requisite knowledge and skills to facilitate dialogue in resolving conflict in their communities and restoring peace.
Governor Obasani of Kaduna State has held an emergency security meeting with some traditional rulers and heads of security agencies over the security situation in the state. At the meeting, the heads of security agencies gave briefings on the security challenges in Soba, Beredengwari and some other councils and reviewed the progress made so far in addressing the problems. The meeting, which was held on Tuesday behind closed doors, follows the resurgence of kidnappings and bandit attacks in Soba, Zaria, Barirangwari and some other parts of Kaduna State. Sani, who presided over the meeting, harped on the need to strengthen cooperation between security agencies, traditional rulers and the people. The Borno State Police Command has arrested 17 suspects for criminal conspiracy, culpable homicides, possession of dangerous weapons, theft, among others. The State Police Public Relations Officer in a statement said that 3 suspects were involved in culpable homicide. The suspects, namely Mustafa Muhammad and his co-wife Hafsat Musa, stabbed his first wife to death with a knife. According to the statement, 4 suspects were arrested for being in possession of dangerous weapons, while 4 others were involved in theft. Exhibits recovered from the suspect include assorted mobile phones, knife, toy gun, and tricycle, among others. The Borno State Police Command said that the culpable homicide cases have been transferred to the State CID for further investigation. Our Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, says its members will commence a 3-day warning strike. The association said the strike is premised on retirement letters issued to untenured doctors on grade level 17. In a letter, the FCT minister, the doctors said that the strike will begin Wednesday midnight. Now, the letter was signed by Emmanuel Musa, MDCN chairman, and Uko Ekete, its secretary general. The consultants said that the decision was reached at an emergency Congress meeting. The medical consultants said that they decided on the strike after efforts to reach an amicable resolution with the FCTA establishment failed. The medical consultants explained that the FCTA was the only administration that has misinterpreted, misapplied and implemented the circular in Nigeria. The consultants called for an immediate withdrawal of the compulsory retirement letters to its members. You're watching the News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up shortly. Katsina residents resort to cooked cassava as price of food continues to rise. Details and more after the break.
20 Zenith Bank customers that will win 150,000 naira every 2 weeks from June 1st, 2023 until May 31st, 2024 in the Zenith Better Life Promo 3. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Live the better.
Residents of the Federal Capital Territory are hereby alerted to the activities of scavengers, also known as Babambula, which security agencies have identified as a high-level security threat to not only the residents but also to our infrastructure as they perpetrate petty stealing and acts of vandalism on public utilities. More so, they are drug peddlers, serve as spies to terrorist elements, and are ready-made tools for the public disturbances during which they attack people with dangerous weapons. The Federal Capital Territory Administration therefore reiterates that the ban on scavengers aka Babambula operating within the Federal Capital City is still in force. These miscreants are advised to stay off the streets of the Federal Capital City for their own good, as defaulters will be apprehended and prosecuted, including parents of underage children involved in these practices. Relevant agencies are carrying out enforcement of this ban as stipulated. Be law-abiding always. Let's together build the FCT of our dreams. Management announcer.
Welcome back. This is the News Hour on Trust TV. A look at the top stories again. Our said president calls for help as President Tinubu Commonwealth reacts to coup in Gabon. Building collapse kills 6, injures others in Borno IDP camp. Now, the need for youths to embrace entrepreneurship as a way of complementing government's efforts in job creation in order to reduce the rate of unemployment has again been emphasized. This is the view of some residents of Jalingo who spoke with Trust TV on what can be done to reduce the rate of crime and criminality in the society.
One of the promises made by the governor of Taraba State, Agbu Kefas, in his inaugural address to the state was that of job creation for youths and women. In fulfillment of that promise, the Taraba State government has successfully commenced processes for the recruitment of both graduates and undergraduates into the state's employ. Efforts to speak with the Commissioner for Cooperative and Poverty Eradication were not successful. For Mark Tukur, Obed Titus and Elizabeth Stephen Lakwat, who spoke with Trust TV, they want the youth not to depend on government for white-collar jobs, but rather acquire skills or venture into business in order to earn a decent living instead of staying idle.
Governor Agbu Kefas has come in from the ongo, the little days he has done in office. Much is expected from him. I don't want to brag that he will do, because we make this same bragging on the past administration and nothing happened.
Some of the women who are into tailoring, bags making, barbing and other businesses also stress the need for young ladies to take up different trades instead of depending on their husbands or government.
My advice to the youth out there, you shouldn't depend on white-collar jobs. You have to engage in something to do. You can imagine the hunger these days. My brother, if the rest are not hearing me, I'm hearing it. Honestly, it has not been easy. Engage in something that will fetch you money. Do not depend on government works.
My advice to them is for them to get something doing. They should not stay idle. They should not be reluctant and get something, a handwork to do.
They should engage themselves in doing something. They should not wait for government. Though government have promised that they will provide a job for the youth, but we should not sit down and wait for the government.
For Adam Azaya, waiting for white-collar jobs will not stop them from running their businesses and vice versa.
White-collar job is good. Yes, you go to school because you want to acquire a white-collar job is good. But you also have to learn the skills. We have tailoring, we have barbing, you have, like me, I am a barber. So we barb and then we do a lot of things here. So I am calling on the youth of our dear state, Taraba, that you should look for something, get the handwork to do to encourage yourself.
They called on the state government to fulfill its promise of creating jobs for women and youth, noting that youth unemployment is the major factor that gives rise to insecurity in the state.
Now, low-income earners in Katsina State now resort to cassava as an alternative meal as prices of food items continue to rise following fuel subsidy removal. The arrival of the new cassava to the market is seen as a huge relief to many residents who go to bed with empty stomach. Abdullahi Ahmadi reports.
Cassava is a staple food, particularly in northern Nigeria, for its affordability and is easy to process. Many eat cooked cassava without mixing it with anything, while others give it a mixture of powdered kuli-kuli, thus making it taste better. I was in another business before the arrival of the new cassava. Now, this is the only business I do, buying and selling of cassava, and it pays. Many residents rely heavily on cooked cassava, which serve as their only meal. I make ends meet from cassava because, as you can see, low-income earners cannot afford food items such as rice, beans, maize, and others. As such, cassava is the cheapest and requires little things to put food on the table. As the economic hardship continues to bite harder, these young girls bring cooked cassava from the neighboring villages for sale and buy other grains from the proceeds. Before now, cooked cassava is eaten just for pleasure, but it's becoming an alternative food these days due to the biting economic realities triggered by inflation and fuel subsidy removal. To be honest with you, poverty is the cause of all this. To me, I eat cassava out of necessity. I buy it a lot and take it home for my family, but not because they like it, but they have no option.
In every situation, we thank God. Cassava complementing our daily life. Not only me, the bachelor, including the household.
Residents call on the government to, as a matter of urgency, introduce measures that will eradicate poverty and address rising inflation and unstable economic policies. Abdullahi Ismail-Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
With the rainy season gradually coming to an end, farmers in Kaduna State are appealing to government to beef up security ahead of the harvest season to enable farmers to access their farms for a smooth harvest. They say many of them couldn't cultivate their farms this year due to inaccessibility to their farms for fear of being kidnapped. Trust TV's Bello Musa, who spoke to some of the farmers in Kachia, Igabi, Birnin Gwari and Chikun local government areas of Kaduna State, now reports.
Kachia, Igabi, Birnin Gwari and Chukun local government areas are still experiencing kidnapping and other forms of insecurity that prevented several farmers from accessing their farms at the beginning of this year's rainy season. With harvest time setting in, farmers are apprehensive that as bandits offer resurface during harvest to kidnap for ransom. I planted at the beginning of the season, but for months now, I couldn't access my farm, and farming is the only thing we know.
As for me, I can go to my farm. There is no any security threat where my farm is. Alhamdulillah. But others, majority, cannot go to their farms.
Presently, their farms are inaccessible because you go there, you are trading at the expense of your life.
People are kidnapped while working in their farms, so they are afraid of going to the farms. Umar Sule is a farmer at Birniyero in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. He says the quantity of maize he produced must have dropped because he couldn't access his farm due to insecurity. He now cultivates a farm near the Kaduna Zaria Expressway. I begged someone to lend me this land to cultivate because I can no longer access my farm, which is far from here because of kidnapping. In order to have a hitch-free harvest period, the farmers are calling on the government to improve the security situation in farming areas in the state. As poor farmers, we can't reach the government directly. However, we are appealing for improved security to enable us continue our farming.
This is an opportunity that we, most especially the southern Kaduna, we've been experiencing kidnapping, banditry, and a lot. So I think by we having a brother there, he will help us to do more.
They should help us and provide enough security so that we can produce more from our farms. People are already entertaining fear that the harvest this year will not meet up with the demands from Nigerians due to insecurity and other factors. However, the farmers across Kaduna State are hopeful that there will be improved security around farming areas for a smooth harvest. Bella Musa, Trust TV News Kaduna.
Women in Bauchi State have been urged to avoid using local ways of menstrual hygiene to be safe from contracting infectious diseases. A medical practitioner, Abdulsalam Abdulaziz, made the call while commenting on the high increased cases of transmitted disease among women. Trust TV's Adamu Imam reports.
Recent reports shows that number of cases of sexual transmitted diseases among women nowadays is on the high. Against this background, a medical practitioner appeals to women to maintain using disinfectant sanitary pad for good hygiene despite economic challenges.
When you have an infection through the use of unhygienic means during menstruation, when you compare the cost of treatment to you buying the proper pad, you'll see that by and large, you are still, to get that properly made pad is better off than using the locally made stuff. So I think we want to use this opportunity to actually tell women that, we understand the economic realities. Things are hard, but it is still, health can never be, it can never be too expensive. And one should actually try and prevent these infections, diseases, conditions. To prevent them is better than actually going for cure.
Some women who spoke to Trust TV within the state capital shared their experiences while using sanitary pad during menstrual cycle. They explained that high cost of living also contribute to why some women are using alternative means.
Sanitary pads for their monthly menstrual flow is difficult these days, considering the hike in prices, the cost of living. For me, the last time I bought a pad actually was 2 years back, because I think I've stopped. So the last time I bought it was 300 naira, but I think the cost of living is really pathetic for women. And then using alternative means aside from sanitary pads for me is not hygienic.
Make use of during this monthly cycle are too expensive, and for the economic situation we are now, people cannot really afford it. So there are so many sensitization campaigns on menstrual hygiene, and which with this economic hardship, vis-a-vis, we are, contradicting ourselves. We are promoting hygiene, yet we can't even use, clean sanitary pads. So I'll call on well-to-do and meaningful Nigerians to support our women, especially in rural areas, to really have best practices on menstrual hygiene.
It's not a hygienic thing, because when it is time for rainy season like this, you cannot have enough sun to dry it up, and it can affect your health. But that of the sanitary pad that every lady used to buy is good, sure. But there are some that is still bad. I cannot say that all is good things.
He, however, advised government to prioritize awareness campaign against the danger of using unhygienic protection by women. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
The United Nations High-Level Meeting on Tuberculosis is set to take place in September 2023 on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, with hopes to comprehensively review the progress of key commitments by heads of states and governments to end the dreaded TB disease by 2030. Civil society actors are calling on the government of Nigeria to ensure the implementation of adequate measures to eradicate the disease and enact laws towards protection of TB communities through multi-sectoral approach. The report.
Nigeria is among the 14 high-burden countries for tuberculosis, TB and HIV, and multi-drug-resistant TB, and is equally ranked 6th among the 30 high TB-burden countries globally. Nigeria is also first in Africa, accounting for 80% of the global TB burden, according to statistics. Although the country has a lot of missing cases of tuberculosis and records about 400,000 cases of TB yearly, the WHO 2022 Global Report estimates that 112,000 mortality was recorded in the country. Nigeria, in its fight to eradicate and control the disease, made diagnosis and treatment free across public health facilities within communities, as the disease can be totally cured. In spite of this, there are a number of barriers to tackling the disease effectively. However, stakeholders believe that awareness creation, more funding to address limited access of diagnostics and treatment services, and strengthening community health systems are among measures to be implemented.
Stigma and discrimination is part of the reasons why we've not been able to end TB. Because when people do not know that a person on TB treatment can no longer spread the disease, then they continue to stigmatize them. And when that person continues to be stigmatized, then that person is afraid of accessing treatment. And that leads to that person continuing to live within communities, continuing to engage with people that they can now transfer the disease to. We need more resources, again, I reiterate that, more resources invested in TB in the area of research and development of vaccines to fight the disease.
There are also calls on the government at national and subnational levels to enact TB legislations that protect the fundamental human rights of TB communities.
Their persons are treated differently because they are affected by TB, whether through loss of jobs or through denial of freedom to walk around, to associate, and all of that. And so these rights are violated every day. And the advocacy is that we need to have laws, policies and regulations that speaks against the discrimination. The tension between human rights, and that is the societal rights, and then the right of the individual within the space of TB infection and infection should be such that human rights are respected. That's what we're saying. You see the issue of HIV. We made great strides when we passed the HIV Non-Discrimination Act at federal level and at subnational levels. And we're saying that the same thing should apply to TB.
Stakeholders want government to develop a roadmap for the actualization of the commitments in Nigeria, as was done at the 2018 United Nations High-Level Meeting on TB in order to end the disease by 2030. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
You're watching the News Hour on Trust TV. We'll now take a short break. The news continues shortly. Welcome back. Now, away from Nigeria, clashes in eastern Syria between Arab tribal fighters and US-backed Kurdish-led fighters have left several people, including civilians, dead and others wounded, opposition activists and pro-government media have said. The clashes, which continued on Wednesday, are among the worst in years in the region along the border with Iraq, where hundreds of United States troops have been based since 2015 to help in the fight against the ISIL armed group. The first broke out on Monday, a day after the US-backed Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces detained the commander and the several members of their Al-Zor military council, a group that had been allied with the SDF at a meeting they invited them to in the northeastern city of Kaseke. Now, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and Opposition War Monitor reported that 10 Arab tribesmen and 3 SDF fighters were killed in clashes in the villages of Reje and Breha on Wednesday. A joint statement issued on behalf of the SDF and the military council said that Abu Qala had been removed from his position as commander, adding that he had been dismissed along with 4 other leaders for alleged involvement in multiple crimes and violations, including drug trafficking. And in sports news, the Handball Federation of Nigeria has called up 18 players to camp ahead of next month's African Women Youth Handball Nations Championship. The players are expected to report to camp at the Roe Park Training Center in Yaba, Lagos. The 19th Africa Women's Youth Handball Nations Championship will take place from September 16 to 23 in Monastir, Tunisia, and serves as a qualifier for the 2024 Youth Handball World Cup. According to the Federation, 14 players who participated in the IHF Challenge Trophy were invited to the Nations Cup. Top on the list is Captain Esther Matthew of Seasiders Babes, who was named the most valuable player at the 2023 IHF Zone 3 Challenge Trophy. Best goalkeeper of the IHF Zone 3, Precious Samuel of Rima Queens, as well as Taiwo Babatunde of Seasiders Babes. The Handball Federation of Nigeria also retained Agbola Shitu of Toje Marine Academy as head coach and will be assisted by Opene Roberts of Bielsa Queens. Nigeria will face Algeria, Guinea, and 2-time champions Tunisia in Group A. And then still in sports news, Raphael Varane has been ruled out for a few weeks as Manchester United's injury issues pile up ahead of their Premier League trip to Arsenal. The club said in a statement on Wednesday that Raphael Varane will be missing from the team when Manchester United face Arsenal in the Premier League on Sunday due to injury. Erik ten Hag's side head to North London on Sunday without several players for their final match before the international break. Luke Shaw and Mason Mount are currently out of action, while new signing Rasmus Højlund has yet to make his debut due to a back complaint. And that wraps up the news hour for tonight. But you can watch more via all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube live stream. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.